Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
That doesn't sound all that great for back here. I just sprung for a new speaker, one of Scott's new yaks, and I sounded great on that.
Does that mean you had it pointed the wrong way? Less voice, less voice.
Less voice. Welcome to the, or I better read the words or I'll get this wrong. Welcome to the 46th CALLERLAB Convention in Richmond, Virginia. Today is April the 16th, and this is the online resources session. My name is Barry Clasper, and my co-presenter is Dottie Welsh. And the reason we're doing this is because I am the manager, administrator, curator, whatever you want to call me, of the Square Dance Knowledge Base, which is what you happen to see up on the screen at the moment. Dottie owns the two websites, the Dances website, which is a collection of community dance, party dance types of things, and the Teaching Resource, which is a wonderful resource that's just starting to blossom now, that allows people who are teaching classes to go and research the calls that they're trying to teach and get teaching materials on them and see what standard applications look like. And it's a really wonderful resource that she's putting together. So that's why we are your presenters. So our plan is to try and get through what we have to present in the first hour and a quarter and leave some time left for questions. I'll do a little session on the knowledge base to start. We'll take questions on that, and then Dottie will move on to the teaching resource and the dances database. Okay, so normally when I present I like to stand up, but most of what I'm going to be doing is on the screen here. If you can't see the screen from the back, don't be back. There's lots of room up here in the front. And it's not that you're going to have to read everything, but if you're sitting back there squinting and saying, well, I can't see what he's pointing at, come on up to the front. We seem to have lots of space.
Good deal.
And for those of you listening to the audio recording without the benefit of the video, your best bet is probably to go to knowledge.callerlab.org. And I'm hoping by the end of this session you will all be able to say this URL by heart. Knowledge.callerlab.org pulls this screen up that you're looking at here. This is the landing page for the knowledge base.
Well, that's the CALLERLAB knowledge.
It resolves to that.
It resolves to that. The reason I send you, just people will ask, the reason I send you to knowledge.callerlab.org is because in the fullness of time, this is going to move. Right now, this is on a GoDaddy site that I'm paying for, to be frank, and our plan was to move it under the CALLERLAB's server, and for other reasons which I won't go into, that hasn't happened. We don't have the resources and the expertise at CALLERLAB's behest to do that work on the server. So for now, it's over here, but in the fullness of time, it's going to move. So if you get into the habit of going directly to this CALLERLABknowledge.org, one of these days, you'll go and it won't be there. So get in, and it's kind of frustrating because they even let you see the redirect when you go to knowledge.callerlab.org. There's a page comes up and says, you're being redirected to over here. And I keep trying to get them to take that down, and I can't even make that happen. So it's a little frustrating from that point of view, but nevertheless, the website is there and it works. So I'm going to sit down, and by now I hope that all the people listening to the tape will call this website up, and I'll try and refer verbally to what I am doing so you can follow it around on your website for those that are in the audio recording. So this page that you're looking at is the home page for the Square Dance knowledge base, and if you look up here in the masthead, you can see exactly what this website is about: sharing ideas and experiences for the betterment of square dancing. And that's exactly what it is. It's a collection of ideas, documentation, winning ways, stories, books that people have written on various topics, and I'm going to briefly show you through the general organization of the website, but I'm not really expecting, don't bother taking notes, that's why I haven't given you a handout, because the website is supposed to be self-guiding. If you can't go to this page and figure out how to use it, let me know. You know, everybody except Vic. Because if you can't figure out how to use it, how to find what you want by reading what's on this page, then I have a problem. Now, on the other hand, please don't be emailing me and phoning me, asking me questions that are answered on this page. So if you look at this page, you'll see across the top in the masthead, this area, the top masthead, appears on every page. So you always have access to these. You'll see a list of categories that are kind of the buckets that we've put this information into. I call all the stuff that I put in here, I call the items articles. That's just my word for them. So you can see the categories things are dumped into is promoting square dancing, which is material that has to do with generally trying to give square dancing a positive perspective from the public point of view. Includes advertising and marketing and that kind of stuff, but for square dancing in general as opposed to some particular group or advertising a club or something like that. Developing dancers is about training dancers, teaching lesson plans, how do you recruit, how do you organize a club, that kind of thing. And you'll notice that as I hovered over developing dancers, a little block popped up and said what that category is about. So if you're not sure, just hover over one of the links and you will eventually get a, you probably can't read that even from the front on this screen, but I can. So recruiting, teaching, running clubs, lesson systems, etc. Developing callers is about material that callers who are trying to develop their craft will find useful. So there's information on choreography, music, calling schools, equipment, that sort of thing. Pardon me?
Ethical practices.
Ethical practices. I'm not sure I actually have anything on that. Do you have something? Let me say this right now because I want to keep emphasizing this point. Right now, everything that's in here is information that I have gathered. It's stuff I've stumbled upon in my travels and my conversations with people. There's lots more stuff out there that I haven't found just because I haven't been there or I haven't talked to the people involved or whatever. So I need to cast a much wider net. And I'm hoping that through this presentation and talking to people in the hallways here at convention, and I'm going to get up and say something tomorrow at the general meeting, that I will put it in people's heads to take note of things. When you see something that you think is for the betterment of square dancing, if other people knew about this, just send it to me. I'm not asking you to write an article or to go to a lot of work. Just let me know about it. If it's an article in the paper that looks good, or if it's something good that you saw on YouTube, there's a lot of neat stuff on YouTube these days. If somebody's written a great recruiting plan, anything like that, just let me know about it. I'll go chase it down. And assuming that it seems to be suitable to go on the knowledge base, then I will put it in here. CALLERLAB conventions is basically material that has been gathered from these conventions. We currently have 940 audio recordings up on YouTube that are presentations like this that have been recorded, and they're all up there. There's handouts for a lot of them. There's now, in the last 4 or 5 years, they've started making video recordings. So we have some video recordings up there too. Not quite so many. I think there's like 150 of them, something like that. Winning ways stories. This is where we started. We were collecting what we call winning ways stories. Somebody does something that seems to work well, or maybe turns out not to work so well, and it's a warning, don't do it this way. So we've collected those stories together so that you can read through somebody's experience and learn from what they did. And also, usually these stories have a lot of collateral associated with them. Like somebody has built something, they built a document, they built a marketing plan, they did some recruiting and figured out how to do that. They built flyers and brochures. Often they're collected together in these stories. So there's a lot of, there's a lot of collateral there that can help you if you're in, one of the stages that the winning way is about. The articles by type thing is sort of some housekeeping that doesn't, if you want to go in by and look at that, that's fine, but I'm not going to beat it to death. This other one that I want to make sure everybody knows about, it says exactly what I mean. Contact us to suggest content or make comments. Please do that. There's a number of places, such as here on the site, where you can just click and it sends me an email. So it's really easy to get a hold of me. Please do that. So, and don't worry too much about whether the suggestion that you're sending in seems to make sense, or if you give me enough that I can chase it down, then I will do that. So let's look quickly at how this is organized. Now this is all described in this area of the landing page. These buttons that you see here all blow up with a bunch of text in them. So this one explains what I've just said about the knowledge base. There's detailed instructions in how to use it. See how much I'm scrolling? So we should hopefully be able to read through this and decide how you want to attack it. And there are basically 3 ways to navigate your way through the material that's in here. You can see from the introductory paragraph here that currently there's 197 articles, and they're grouped into 21 categories, and they're tagged with 44 different information tags. So just to explain what all that means, you can think of a category as kind of like a bucket that we're putting in material that seems to belong together. It's related to something that's common to them. An information tag means that I have looked at whatever the thing is and decided it is pertinent to a particular topic. So you can see all the information tags that are in the database over here on the right in this tag cloud. And you'll notice whenever I hover over one of these things, you get that underlining happening, which means this is a link, it goes somewhere. And again, you'll notice that here I've hovered over education and a little box pops up, it says 28 topics. What that means is that there's 28 articles that are flagged with this tag. This particular tag I've hovered on is education. So this says there's 28 articles in here that have some direct relevance to education. That's as opposed to using the search bar, which you see just above that. If you use the search bar, you're doing a full text search of whatever's in the database. So that would pop up all the articles that have the word education in them, whether or not they have anything to do with education. They might just mention it, as an off-the-cuff thing or a tangential thing. So you can navigate using the tag cloud, you can do full text search, or you can navigate by going through the categories that are listed in the masthead. So let's go to developing callers. You're all callers, you're interested in stuff to do with that. So I've just clicked on the developing callers category, and this is what a landing page for one of these categories looks like. A little description about what the category is about, and you'll see 2 buttons here that blow up. So one shows you the subcategories that are within that category. So you can see in developing callers we have a category about choreography. 29 articles have to do with choreography, 23 articles that have to do with equipment, 19 articles that have to do with music, and 11 articles that have to do with schools and learning aids. So a school would be a caller school, and a learning aid would be maybe like a computer tool that helps you with something. And then the other button, if you blow that up, just gives you a list of all the titles that are under developing callers in alphabetical order. And as you can see, there's a bunch of them in there. So you can choose which way you want to go at the categories. You go away. Under that, you see a list, again, of all the articles that are in this developing callers bucket, with a very brief excerpt and a read more button under them. So you can again sort of browse through that if you want. If you get down to the bottom of the screen, you'll see that there's some buttons that let you continue. So we can go to the 5th page, and actually there's 6 pages there apparently. So that's the way that's all organized. And these are the kinds of articles that you'll see in there. For instance, we did a session here on Square View yesterday. Here's a whole article, I think written by Richard Manning, on Square View installation and use. So if you didn't get enough in your notes from the session yesterday, you could go and read this. Okay, let's look at the way the tag clouds work. If you go to this tag cloud, you'll see that some of the words are bigger than others. The size of the word is an indication of the relative number of articles that are there. So you can see documentation has 69 topics in it, and if we go down to media articles, there's only 5 topics that have to do with media articles. That can be deceptive because, for instance, one of the articles that's under media articles is what I call a summary, which means it's a big long list of media articles. So let's show you what a tag list looks like. So if you click on that tag for media articles, you get this display which says, here's the tag for media articles, and I'm going to list all the articles that are in that tag stream. And it describes what the tag is about: articles in non-Square Dance media such as magazines, newspapers, newsletters, podcasts, social media, or broadcast media. These are all things that are sort of out there in public that we can see. And you see articles like dancing can reverse the signs of aging in the brain. So that's here because it's a media article, but that would also be listed under health benefits. So the health benefits tag would also show this same article. And here's this summary article I was telling you about, media articles on square dancing. And there's a button down below that has an expanding table, and you pull that up and you get a sortable table of, how many? 44 media articles are in there. I'm collecting these all the time. People point them out to me. I go look at it, and if it seems to be applicable to our purposes, I put it in this table. Some of them are old. There's 1989. Some of them are new, 2019, February. So that's what it's like to chase a tag down. If you do a search, the most popular article that we have, for those of you who came in late, there's a handout up at the front that has the report that I gave to the Board of Governors on this on Sunday. That just shows the kind of the activity statistics that we've had for the last year or so. And the most popular article is program documents, meaning it's CALLERLAB program documents. So if you go looking for the C1 list and you can't find it on the CALLERLAB website, which is a common experience, you can go and find this CALLERLAB program documents. And if you know the name of the article, you can go directly to the CALLERLAB program documents. But if you just know you want to see the C1 list and that's all you know, you could search on C1 list and it would pop this up. Or you could search on the advanced list and it would pop this up. Or definitions, it would pop this up. So that's one of the reasons it's the most popular. It's probably the most pointed at by other things in the database. So I'm going to bring that article up just so that you can see how it's organized. So that's what this article looks like. So there's a little description of what it's all about, and then all these buttons down here blow up into a list of documents that are the CALLERLAB officially published documents associated with that program. So for instance, if we look at the basic and mainstream program documents, did you know there were that many? So it's got the lists as you would expect. It's got some Japanese and German translations of some of this stuff. Basic and mainstream checklists, the formations pictograms, formation and arrangement charts, the standard application books. So that's the kind of stuff that's listed in there for each of the programs. Something that I just added recently, somebody said, how do I find out what the triennial results were, triennial review results were? Because nothing has been published in press releases or anything yet. So I put it up here. And any minute now it should open. There it goes. So it's an explanation of how the triennial review process works and why the documentation often lags behind the public understanding of what the results were, so that people can start preparing themselves to either teach these things or to at least know what's going on. So it shows all the current results. And in the fullness of time, the documentation will catch up with them. So as they start to update the definitions or the lists to conform to whatever the results of the triennial, that's a hard word to say, triennial review was, then the need for this particular section will go away until the next triennial review. So I'm going to stop there so that I don't take too much of Dottie's time, because she's got a lot more interesting stuff to show you. But the one point I want to make is that everything Dottie is going to show you is also pointed at in the knowledge base. So for instance, if you do a search on community dance, one of the things that's going to pop up is Dottie's Dance's website. And if you do a search on lesson plans or teaching, you will get the teaching website as one of the hits. So any questions? Wow, I must have been really clear.
I might have one. Vic Cedar, I'm wondering how...
Let me just make sure you're on. Keep talking.
I'm still Vic Cedar.
Still Vic Cedar, but you're not on.
No,
Plugged into the
sounds like
core.
he's on. I can hear him.
Can you hear him through the speaker?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, okay.
My only question is, I mean, being another website, how permanent are your links to the knowledge database? If I link to that, will it phase out over time, or
So,
you have a permanent link?
so there you're talking about this link you see up in the address bar here?
Yes.
Well, as I
Or
said
some
before,
some other link to it.
today, so I just highlighted the link up in the URL bar there. If you go to if you wanted to see this page, and you put that link in your browser address bar, it would come up. But if in the fullness of time we really manage to get this thing moved onto the CALLERLAB server, that link will change. So
So if I get the, whatever it was, the CALLERLAB,
If you do-
knowledgebase.callerlab.org.
knowledge.callerlab.org. Say after me, knowledge.callerlab.org.
Oh my.
So,
Ask the follow-up question, which is,
So if you use, sorry, Debbie Cedar, if you use knowledge.callerlab.org and the rest of that URL /?p=1376, will it bring up this page?
that should work if we do the migration correctly.
no, today.
No, today it wouldn't. No, today it wouldn't. And that's part of the problem. I mean, it lives in a completely different site. All the CALLERLAB website is doing is pointing at this callerlabknowledge.org domain. So that's a problem we have. Dottie?
Curious,
I'm curious about the one that went to the media articles. If you click on one of those articles, where does that take you? Does it take you to some copy of that article that you have made, or does it take you to the original place, which may or may not still be there?
Yes. So, it depends. some of these articles are still up on the, you know, the Chicago Times website. And if that's the case, that's what I point to. Others were actually something that was sent to me as a document. The article is there and the attribution is there, but I've got it as a PDF or something. So in that case, it's actually on our site.
So I guess the follow-up to that is, have you considered making PDFs so that we won't lose this stuff when the other site becomes inaccessible?
I have, but there's, like, first of all, there's copyright issues associated with that, especially when you're dealing with a newspaper. Like, there's stuff in here from the New York Times and, you know, the Denver Post and places like that. So I don't feel comfortable just grabbing their stuff and putting it up here. Although sometimes people send me their stuff and I do just put it up there, so I'm kind of inconsistent that way.
But you would be, everything on, all the attributes would stay there. You'd still have it clearly where it came from.
True, but that doesn't necessarily mean that, you know, they would be happy with us grabbing it. Just like today, there's a lot of, in fact, there's legislation happening in Europe about Google and places like that pulling in, aggregating news information that's been published by media companies without any payment. So they're very sensitive to that right at the moment. Yeah.
There are even questions
Who are you?
I'm Bill Freeman from New Hampshire. There are even questions about linking to someone's site without their
Yes, it
consent.
can be. So, and the other factor involved in that is just strictly the work. It's a lot easier for me to throw a link up there than to somehow abstract the information in a form that I can then pull into the knowledge base as a separate document. Any other questions? Okay, so at this point, I'll turn it over to Dottie.
Can you
Do
quickly
you want an introduction, or would you be willing to introduce yourself? I didn't really introduce myself, I just said I run the knowledge base. But
Yeah, all right, so we'll introduce Barry Clasper from Ontario, who came, I have to say, as far as this knowledge base is concerned, I believe, which convention was it? I don't know, Niagara Falls?
It
Is
was,
as far as back as that?
no, it was Springfield,
Missouri?
Missouri.
We had, you might remember that we had a session where we did kind of a brainstorming session, and we all filled out little pieces of paper, and they were going to be analyzed. And you are seeing that was the start of this creation. So.
Yeah, I foolishly thought when we did that I would be able to assemble the results of that brainstorming session and throw them up in some kind of spreadsheet or something by the end of the convention. And I was sadly mistaken about that, but a year later, this database was up. Okay, so do you want to
Okay, so
run it, or do
before
you
we
want me to do it for you?
Before we switch, or you could stay there if you wish, I'm suggesting that you find the place, which I would have to spend a little bit of time looking for, that points to one of mine.
Okay, which one would you like?
Let's start with the teaching one.
Okay, well, there is a teaching tag here somewhere.
Teaching dancers down there?
Teaching dancers. Let's see what pops up. It's a big one, so, you know, your site might not be the top of the list. These tag lists, it didn't go anywhere, did it?
Right.
These tag lists are basically just a big long list of all the documents with that tag. And they're in reverse date order of loading. So whatever the last one I put in, that's the one that's going to be first in the list. And I've had pointers to yours for quite a while, so it's going to be. Now what you can do if you're looking through one of these tag lists is, if you've got some idea what it is, I'm going to have to put the mic down to type with both hands.
So
You can do a search on the tag page. So don't use the search bar that you see up above the tag cloud there because that's searching the entire website. If you just want to search the page that you're looking at, use your browser search function, the Control F, which in my browser pops up this little block. So
I'll
we
tell them
could,
what you type, go ahead.
so what would you like me to type to find it?
teaching.callerlab.org. So he is doing
So
that.
it hasn't, it actually hasn't found that. We've gone to teaching.callerlab, type that into the box, and it's not there. So, but the reason it's not there is because it's buried in a link. That's not what I called the link.
Okay.
So
So teaching resource?
this is, yeah, so this is actually a useful exercise in how you might have to navigate your way around. So you say, well, this is too long a list of stuff to look through. How else might I find it? And you can do a search on teaching. Oops, you've got to spell it right. Yeah. Teasing. Well, there's no results for teasing.
This is a good sign.
Okay. So we've got 46 hits on the word teaching. Tense teaching order, teaching new dancers, teaching styling, sustainable square dance, do a couple of teaching.
There it is, well,
CALLERLAB online teaching resource. And these are listed in order of what it considers to be relevance, which is dubious in a lot of cases. So once you've found it in a search hit list like that, you can just clink on that link.
Click on that link.
And it will take you to the article in our database that talks about that online teaching resource. So here's the article in the knowledge base that talks about the teaching resource. And you'll see there is a link there that says CALLERLAB online teaching resource. But the teaching.callerlab wasn't there.
do you have handouts down here? This is my two at least. All right, so we decided that this is where we want to go, so we press this link and leave this knowledge base and go to a different one, which is called CAC for Choreographic Applications Committee Online Teaching Resource. And this one, as far as I know, is embedded in the CALLERLAB stuff. And hopefully, the link will not change. One can hope. So, what we are finding here is, we're landing on a homepage, and for those of you that are listening to this on the tape, if you've been following our discussion, you need to be going to teaching.callerlab.org, which should bring up the homepage that I'm looking at. So teaching.callerlab.org, which is right what's up there. And as I say, hopefully it will stay that way. So the homepage is a very quick welcome to this. Here you will find material to assist a modern square dance caller who is teaching new calls to dancers or teaching new applications of a call to dancers. And it says we're still developing this. We are making significant progress in this way. And so for starters, click on the CALLERLAB program that contains the call that you're interested in. So this is arranged in current CALLERLAB recommended teaching order. So let's click on Basic Part 1, which takes you to another kind of landing page for that whole section. And you can see the same way as Barry's did, up at the top there in the lower blue line, we have kind of general. These are the main categories that can be found here, and that stuff stays, doesn't disappear as you go from one place to another. So we got the home page that we first landed on. This is Basic Part 1, there's a Basic Part 2, there's a mainstream, and also there's a link back to the CALLERLAB website should you wish to go there. So we are now on Basic Part 1, and we see that starting with circle left and circle to the right, There are, for every call, or for nearly every call, you'll see there's 3 things at the end over here on the right that are not actually a live link. But for every call, there's 7 pages that you can click on to look at. And they're actually, if you scroll down, you'll find, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. You'll find down at the bottom that there's some description there of what you actually find under each of those 7 topics, just a kind of general description. So the topics are define, which is the definition of the call, taken directly from the CALLERLAB definitions document, copy and paste. But it also has some additional information, and I'll go there in a minute. The second section is standard, which is the standard applications, again, taken copy and paste from the standard application. Well, not perfectly copy and paste. The format of the standard applications doesn't behave well in the WordPress, so it's been subtly changed to make it readable, but the text is all copy and paste. Analyze, which is what all caller schools recommend that you do a call analysis of every call that you do and think about what hand do you have to use and which direction are you turning and all that stuff. That's on the call analysis page. Fourth one is modules, get-outs, zeros, equivalents, all that stuff, directly related to the call and using only calls that you already would have taught to the students at that time, if you follow the teaching order as it is. Then there's a teaching page, which does just what it sounds like. It talks about, it usually has, again, from the other CALLERLAB resource, the teaching tips. There's a copy and paste of the teaching tips for that call, and then it goes into the some example choreography. I'll show you each of these. Then there's an other page, which is for other stuff that you might be interested in using when you've taught this call. There's traditional square dances that use that call. There's contour dances that use that call. There's rectangular hexagons that use that call, or whatever I found or knew about that was relevant. And then finally there's a section called Extend, which includes some, I emphasize the word some, extended applications of the call. Same kind of format as the teaching page. The teaching page focuses on standard applications of the call, and everything else is dumped into the Extend. And it doesn't go into great detail about Extend. You can't cover all the extensions after all. It shows you the first few places you might think about going if you want to look beyond the standard. So let's go up to the top here, pick a call. What would you like to look at?
Del Paso.
Del Paso, okay. So we go up to Del Paso, up there, yep. So that's listed in teaching order, in case you're wondering. What's the
Teaching order?
Yep. So this is the definition page. So in addition to the definition, which you can see starting down just underneath the background here, that's what comes straight out of the document. But at the top here, on every call, there's a little section on background. Most of this has come from Jay King's book about background. So if he knew, then I've given you here whoever it was that wrote the call. And I've also done a little bit of personal research in my stack of old lists to figure out where and when it landed on the CALLERLAB lists, whatever information that I could find. So that's pretty much what you might expect on the definitions page here. Down at the bottom, on the definitions page, just keep going, there is a link to terminations for that call. Everybody said, we have to have diagrams. And then we said, wait a minute, somebody's done a great job on diagrams. Why reinvent it? So everyone has the link to terminations. And hopefully those won't change. So far, so good. So that's that one. At the top of that page, you can see that instead of going back to the start, you can always go to the other pages for Del Paso. So now we're in the Del Paso section. So we can go from there to standard, which is the standard applications, as I said. You'll see if you've been looking at the standard applications document recently, you realize the format's a little bit different, but the information is the same. That's what's currently there in the standard applications document. Then the third one is analyze, which is a call analysis page. We have hands needed at the start, hands held at the end, body flow at the start, body flow at the end, good proceeding calls. Pretty much I've stuck to where are we in the list at this point. In some cases I've tucked in one that you're going to teach very soon thereafter, because you might want to know that as well. And good following calls, and then I've taken the standard applications list, and for not all, but for several of the examples on the standard applications list, I've looked at, okay, if we started in one of those standard applications positions and called do, pass, so, what would the ending formation be? Okay, and so that's what you're seeing there, ending formations for standard starting formations and arrangements. So, if we start in a circle, normal couples, and do a do, pass, so, and we follow the definitions precisely, you're going to end in the same circle, normal couples again. Is there one more section on the bottom of this? I'm not sure there is. Anything else? No? Okay. So, then we go to modules. And so we have some zero, we have a zero. Starting do, pass, so from a circle and ending with a courtesy turn is a zero itself. And we have get outs from a partner line that takes you into a do, pass, so, and that would then let you go into a promenade. And we have a get out from a corner box that does the same kind of thing. Most of these modules, as I said, I believe, came from Calvin Campbell. He had an extensive list that he transferred to me and allowed me to use. I've added a few along the way that came to me from other directions, but that's where they're from. And then we have the teaching section. So at the top is the teaching tips from the documents that were produced some time back. I was Tim Mariner and somebody else with him.
I think Bill.
Harrison, maybe? Yeah. So the quote from that, on some calls, on many calls, if I had some other suggestions about teaching, that would be under the more teaching suggestions section. Quick quote that you might be saying as the dancers are doing this before they've really mastered the call, or if they need reminding, which we know they usually do for do, pass, so. And then we have, this is a standard format that I use for the teaching standard applications. So with this figure, it's intended to be doable in 64 beats. Some of them are quite generous in timing because I know you've got new dancers and they're not going to get through it as quickly as they should. But I've made quite an effort to avoid anything that is impossible to achieve in 64 beats without killing yourself. And at the end of it, an option that will allow you to call that as patter and resolve with your partner, and another ending which is intended to be used as a singing call and would resolve with a corner. So, and as you can see, the first one there actually could be used as a figure in a singing call. It would take you to your corner. The second one, the break, would be something that you would use either at the beginning, the middle, or the end as a break figure. Then the next one is the other section. Okay, so for do, pass, so, I put the old classic El Paso City figure, which it takes some practice these days for dancers to do it, but it's certainly relevant. So, I don't know if there's anything else down below there. No, that's it for that one. And then in the extended part, I haven't got very much, but I think I'm putting you in a different way from what one would normally see. So that's the kind of thing we got. You can take yourself back to basic part one. Well, you can do it there, or you can actually do it in the other. There was a second link there, but either one works. So we're back to the beginning here. They're all the same kind of setup. There's all of basic part one. We go back to the top here. Go to basic part two. Same deal. All the way to the end of basic. And I've got at the bottom there's the list, so that if you want to remind yourself what the teaching order is and why it is listed as it is, that's the list. Okay, back up, and mainstream, which has been the big project for this year, and I managed to get the last one uploaded last week. Push! I want to get through mainstream before I go to that convention. So, got to the end of mainstream. We talked about it this morning, and I think we are planning at the moment to move on to Plus, although it may be a little while, because in order to gather all this data, it takes time, and I've been really focused on getting us through mainstream. So now, in order to do Plus, I have to go back. Pam has been helping with doing the cut and paste from all these other documents for me, so she hasn't done Plus yet either. So she will start collecting the cut and pastes, but I'm going to have to go back to Calvin's, for the modules for instance, I have to go back to Calvin's original documents and extract. It's not ordered so that I can just take them. I have to sort out, you know, which belongs where, and I'm going to have to do that for all the Plus. So it'll be a while before we get very far with Plus, but that's the intention. So questions on this?
As you can well imagine, just looking at the material that's in there, this is hundreds and hundreds of hours of work to collect all this material and put it in, even though in theory it all exists out there in the wild. But when you see it all collected together like this, you realize if I have to do this myself, it's going to take a lot of work. So the work that Dottie has saved you by putting this resource together, and it's really Dottie's project. I can't speak highly enough or commend her enough for taking this on. It's a huge job. She's done a great job with it. And I'd also like to commend my wife Pam down at the back who just walked in, because I know she's helped with a lot of the grudge parts of it. You know, Dottie would sort of point her where the information exists in some form that can be copied or cut and pasted or whatever, and told her load it in here and make it look like this so that I can then come and organize it properly. So it's really been a team effort. I've enjoyed watching both sides of it and not having to do any of it myself.
So I will add, you know, big effort, lots of places, potential for mistakes. So if you're using it and you see something that you're thinking, oops, that's not really what she meant, or this figure doesn't work properly, or whatever you find, let me know. You know, many eyes catch things. Yeah, I'm sure there's mistakes lurking in there. And if you have additional choreography, additional modules, additional whatever that you think should be added, let me know. It's an online resource. It's meant to be a living document. We can add stuff to it. This is not set in stone. I know as far as the mainstream is concerned, I have at least 3 calls that I'm going to have to update the definitions when they finally settle out. I saw that the scoopback's been approved. You'll see if you look at scoopback at this point for the definition, I have some comment about the fact that this is not the new one, this is the old one. As you say, right in the dance action, this is from the December 2017 version of the dance program, and a revised one. It's because it wasn't finished. I didn't know whether we'd approved it or not until this morning. So that will be done. But please, if you find things that aren't right, let me know. My contact is right on the front homepage to do that. So a lot of stuff there, yes, a lot of work, but the original concept, I mean, my choreographic applications committee's brief is to do things that will help choreographically for all of the programs. And the idea is, as Barry is hinting at, without this, a new caller is forced to go to the definitions and find what he needs, and the teaching tips to find what he needs, and look up modules somewhere and make up singing calls, or look in some book if he can find them. And I don't know about some of you, I'm sure some of you, I know some of you have been around long enough to remember those brown books that Sets in Order put out, the teaching manuals, which the callers carried around as a Bible, but the choreography is out of date. And so this is the attempt here is to recreate this in a modern and usable way. And I hope it gets used in a profitable way. So that's that one. And that, for the general calling population of CALLERLAB, I would say this is the one that is going to get the most use. The third one that we have here, which is dances.callerlab.org, so now we're...
So I just flipped back to the knowledge base, and I just wanted to point out at this point that when you click on something in the knowledge base that's taking you outside, it by and large almost always takes you to a new tab so that you can, continue to hunt in the knowledge base for, you go back to the knowledge base and hunt for something else if you're trying to collect some material together. So now we want to go to the dances.
Right.
So I wonder where that would
So
be.
community dance computer aids, maybe?
You think it might be under community dance?
That's the committee.
I'm just looking to see if all the faces have gone glazed out there. So, whoops, I think I clicked on choreography. That was not good. So I really want community dance. So, under community dance, we've got some community dance teaching videos, no experience dance at local IMCA, that's a winning way story.
So what
Community
link
dance
do you have
journals.
there? All right,
Did
so
you
that
wanna
would
talk-
actually take us to the site.
It would.
Okay.
Do you want to talk about the journals for a minute?
Oh, we can do that. So, the Committee for Community and Traditional Dance produces a community dance journal, has done so for 20-some years, I can't remember exactly, but about 20-some. And they come out, at the moment they're coming out twice a year, more or less. And for some years they came out 3 or 4 times a year. They have been all compiled in where we're headed, the website we're headed for. They've all been compiled in there. So if you clicked on this, that index that is being referenced there is on the page that we're headed for. So, so let's go back to the original and see if we can, to your knowledge base, and see if we can find the link to the home page.
The reason it's so far down is because it was loaded into my database really
So if
early.
we go up one,
This
just
is
go
it.
to the
Oh,
one,
no.
yeah, go to the one above it for a moment. So this one that says Dancing for Busy People actually is Calvin Campbell's site, and there's a book out there called Dancing for Busy People that has a lot of community dances in it. If you go to this website, you will find the excerpts from that book. But a lot of his dances, he's given us permission to put those up on the other one. So there's a lot of duplication between what's on his page and what's on our page. Not entirely, there's lots of stuff on our page that's not in his, but anyway, that's another resource in the same category. So let's go back down and go here to the community dance resource. So just as a website. So for those who are listening, we are now on a page that says dances, dances.callerlab.org. And on its welcome page, and so this is another WordPress document, and likewise, as the last one, is part of the CALLERLAB grand picture, and hopefully won't change. It doesn't have quite the same look because it was set up by Patty instead of by me. That's okay, works. So you can see here that, first of all, on the teaching section, each of those things was arranged as a page because we didn't expect any direct comment there. But once it had to be vetted by somebody. In this one, there is place for comments. I'm not getting hardly any, but that's okay. So this is set up a bit more like the knowledge base because you'll see that we have dance categories on the right, and if you scroll down a bit further, you will keep going. You will find a tag cloud similar to the one that Barry was using. Works the same way. Their larger font means more articles of that type that are used that are tagged by that And it does the same thing as his does, and that is it orders it by the most recent entry first. I haven't found a way to get around that because it doesn't make the best sense, but anyway, so let's go back up again for the moment. So we have several categories here. Let me first of all point out on the welcome page here, you see there's a dance resource table of dances, and then there's the CD journal link. So we already talked about the CD journal a minute, so let's link to that page you just saw briefly before. Don't go down one, we'll do that first, as we already talked about that. So if it turns out that if you go to the CALLERLAB website and try to find the CD journals, it's not easy. You can find some journals, but finding the year and month that you want is a challenge. They're not easily organized. They're all mixed up in the general documents with everything else, direction and so forth and so on. And no matter how hard you might try to sort things into order, you can get all the CD journals, but then they're not in order by date. And if you click on the other one, now you've got everything else all mixed with them. So you could spend a long time scrolling up and down trying to find out if it's there anywhere. Never mind what's in it. So it seemed like it would make sense to make our own index. So what you're seeing here is an index, a sortable index for the journals and what's in the journals. So you can see here that the top one came out in October 2018, and the dances across are, there's not a lot. The journal generally has 4 to 6 pages, so there's not huge numbers of stuff in any one journal. So the dances across are all dances that were featured in that journal. And if you want to look at one of those dances, you click on the journal, so click on that top one there. And you get a PDF of the journal, which you can download to your computer if you wish. So that's the kind of thing. So but basically, it's articles written by people that are involved in community dancing, but largely it's choreography that could be used at beginner parties or community dances, and we try to be clear about what works. The prompts are there, there's descriptions there, that's the kind of stuff that's there. Okay, so let's go back. Let's go back here. So that's the PDF.
And I just want to point out that this site is organized slightly different to the knowledge base, and I believe the teaching resource as well, in that if you click on a link within it, it will stay on the same tab. So you have to then go back and forward and whatnot to get back where you were. So I'm clicking on the back arrow here.
All right, and then let's go back one more. So leave this index. So that index, if you click on the top line, it'll sort by month, or year that it was printed. It'll sort by the name of the dance. It'll sort by authors, or it'll sort by difficulty. So depending upon what you're interested in. Okay, so now we're back on the main page, and the dance resource table, go ahead and click on that, is an index of the dances. So this is the thing over here on the right, the dance categories, is something that you can go directly from there. If you know exactly what you want, you can say, oh, I'm interested in mixers with footwork, and there's 29 of them in here, I want to just see that list. So you can do that, or if you know what the dance is that you want, I think that probably the fastest way to do that is to go to this resource, and this is another sortable table, so if you knew the dance name, you just go over there, they're in alphabetical order when it comes up with a dance name, and look for the dance name. And if you click on the dance name, it'll take you to the page, so yeah. Click on Amos Moses, and hopefully it'll do something. There we go. And up comes a page that shows formation, music, a download, and the prompts and the description. So it's the same kind of format that you were just looking at before on the website, the CD journals. But if you want, you have two choices at this point. If you want to get this on your own computer, you can do a cut and paste directly from this if you like, or you can go up to that download, and if you click on the download, you will get, hopefully, what did I get?
Yeah, you get a file download, you know.
So
So it's a download dialog for the RTF file.
Okay. So
I
it,
don't think I want to do
no,
that.
but up comes a rich text file that you can put on your computer. So you have that choice there. So there's, you can see there's a lot of different kinds of dances here. All the stuff falls in the community dance category. If you're into doing that kind of thing, this is a great resource. There's, I believe, 189 different downloads in there at the moment, which is easily over 200 dances, in addition to a lot that are on the journals that have not been separately documented. So it's a lot of stuff there.
And if you're preparing, if you're like me and you do, 3 or 4 party dances a year, if I'm lucky, so every time I prepare for one, it's like starting over. And so I come to this database, among others, and one of the things I find is that I often look at these descriptions that they have of what the dance is, and I think I can't picture that. I have no idea what it would really be like. A lot of these dances are now up on YouTube. Somebody has videoed somebody doing it, and you can go there. If you know the name of the dance, you can often do a search. And Cal Campbell, that Dottie mentioned, has put up 250 videos that are largely teaching videos of dances like this that are explicitly meant as a teaching video as opposed to just somebody taping a dance that happened. So in the fullness of time, when Dottie's got a minute or two, she might, put a link down here for any, the official teaching
That's
video.
actually on my to-do list. I have a few, but I haven't really addressed that issue yet. Oh, let's see. So let's just go back up here and back to, can we go back to the main, well, we can go from here to someplace else, obviously. So, or let's.
But you want to go back to the main page?
No, it's okay. Let's go someplace else. So, Sicilian Circles, say, just down. So, under contours, we get Sicilian Circles, of which there's 17 in here somewhere. So, when you click on one of these, up comes a list of the Sicilian Circles with a short description of what you'll find when you go to the page. And it also shows you what the tags are that are associated with that dance. That's the bottom one on the right there. So that in this case, for Weathervane Promenade, its tags are, it's a 64 count dance, and it's a beginner dance party kind of dance. It's appropriate for beginner dance party. And if you want to see the page, then you would click on over on the Weathervane Promenade there, and you get to the same kind of pages we had for Amos Moses, which shows you the choreography and the description and allows you to download. It's the same kind of thing. And there's, again, lots of dances there, all different kinds. We can also search by tags. So, for instance, if you're looking for really quickie, like an 8-count dance here, that doesn't.
8-count
8
dance.
count, there's one with 8 counts.
Oh, there it is, little teeny
little
one,
guy,
yeah.
because there's not very many of those. I'm not sure what it'll bring up, but.
Tag 32 count. I clicked on the wrong one because 8 count is so small.
Okay, so these, yeah.
Let's try that again. 8 count. Ah, interesting.
And
There we go.
So Amos Moses, the one dance is 8 counts. So there's several ways to search there. I know the people that are in the community dance world are finding this very useful. I don't know how many of you fall in that category, but we're trying to get the word out. Again, this resource has been up until now pretty much in a book, and we're trying to bring ourselves into the modern world. So any questions on this? Or about any of these?
Any experimental searches you'd like to run? Okay. Just like to reiterate again that if you have a problem with any of these sites, please let us know. Like if you go looking for something and you can't find it, or you find some information that you think has problems, if there's mistakes or something missing, or a link is down, please let us know. We want to know that as quickly as possible. And I would like to reiterate my plea to send me material for the knowledge base. I want to expand that as much as I can. As I say, I'm not asking you to do any work other than let me know that something is there and give me enough information that I can chase it down and see if I can figure out a way to get it into the knowledge base.
And likewise,
Same, especially for the teaching one. If you're using a teaching one and you see anything that's not right, let us know. And same thing for this. If you're using this and you see something about one of the dances that doesn't make sense, needs to be fixed, or who knows what might be wrong. Or if you have a suggestion for something that I can find or you found, and if you can send me enough so that I can run with it, I'll add it.
Okay, well, this session slot runs until 2:30. It's a little longer than most of them. And we put on time for 2:15, so
Anybody want
you
to-
can prepare, you can get first in line for coffee. So thanks for coming. Again, if you have any questions, I'll hang around here for a little while if you have any questions on the knowledge base.
You had them replaced?
And we'll
No?
see you around.
No artificial.
Thanks for coming.
Better than ever. Oh, I got my life back with you.
Guys, all right.